Okay, so hello, my dear future chartered accountants. I hope my voice is audible and the PPT visible. Can you please confirm it once first? Clear? Okay, very good. So we were doing discussion on Ind AS 116 leases, especially from the point of view of lessee. And what is the basic thing we have learned so far? Lessee has got two exemptions in the form of either short-term lease or low-value items. Short-term lease means less than 12 months and low-value items means where the lessee can the benefit on its own or readily available resources. That's the concept. And regarding the accounting piece, once Ind AS 116 applies, he has to account for a liability as well as asset at the beginning. Liability equal to the lease liability, which is the present value of the lease payments, and asset, which is ROU asset, right of use asset, equal to the lease liability plus any payment made already plus any direct initial expenses cost incurred to get the lease, like some brokerage paid, some commission paid. Those things are all added, and payment made before any incentive received will be subtracted. So basically, removing the clutters, it is at inception, lessee will recognize an asset as well as liability. And on liability, amortized cost method is applied, and on asset, depreciation is provided. Then we discussed these modification or reassessment, both were not same, because in reassessment majoritarily we will make use of original discounting rate, but in lease modification we have to take the new rate. So we have discussed so far, but there is one important amendment which has come up in line with the corona effect, the lockdowns which has happened. So let's take a look at that. Your material may not have this aspect, so we need to write it down. The amendment came few months back, applicable for the coming exams. Let's discuss that. And along with that, we'll have an example of lease modification once more. Hope you are clear on the aspect which we have been doing so. Okay. Now, because of corona, what happened? Lockdown. When? March 2020. Corona, lockdown happened. Now, lockdown happened, right, because of which many business got affected, especially one heavy expenditure a business has to incur even when there is no operation is rental expense, right? Even when you don't do operations, rental expense still must be paid. Salary also must be paid. We'll not talk about that now. And rental expenses is a huge cost. I know many CA academies got closed because they could not bear rental expenses. So, what the people who occupied, the tenants, requested the landlords, please give some concessions. This is an unfortunate event. Please give us some concession. Some people agreed, some people did not agree, and some people gave them more time. They provide deferrals. So some provided concessions, some provided deferrals, and some people did not agree at all. Now, because of the rent concession, then deferrals, you pay later deferrals, there is a modification in the consideration. Consideration payable, postponed. And when there is a change in the consideration, it is a lease modification. It is not a reassessment. Reassessment means some factors were there known earlier, now got changed. But here it's not the case. It's a clear case of reduction the lease rentals. Now, reduction in the lease rentals means we have to apply lease modification. And what does lease modification says? You have to account for the decrease, and what and all you should do? You should calculate at the revised rate. Should calculate at the revised rate, and you get the liability amount. Let me just quickly show you the charts. What is lease modification we have discussed so far? And all is discussed. Let me focus on lease modification because that's what the amendment is also about. Huh. So reassessment, because of reassessment of lease term, reassessment of option to purchase, in substance lease payments, residual value changes. So when to use original rate, when to use revised rate, we discuss this. And lease modifications, change in the scope, consideration change, rent concession will fall into this category. Even if you take additional space, all those things, lease modifications we discussed. The accounting is, if it is a separate lease, you take a separate lease, you treat like a separate lease, account separately. That's not a problem. Issue arises if it is not a separate lease, if it is a decrease in the scope or decrease in the term, then remeasure the liability at the revised discounting rate. Decrease in scope and decrease in term. But in other cases, when you when there is a modification, the lease payments and all, either consideration is more or consideration is less, or any other lease modification, you account like modification, in the sense you account like reassessment. Means what? You have to adjust it in ROU asset and lease liability. Adjust it in ROU asset and lease liability at the revised rates. Whenever lease modification applies, please make a note somewhere, it is always revised rate. What is revised discounting rate? At the time of recalculation, at the time of modification, the new rates. And lease modification summary also we understood. Change in consideration, or your certain liability readjusted. Change in lease term, if it is a decrease, you should be careful. And decrease in scope, you should be careful. Means in those cases, you will have to reduce ROU asset also, and excess will take it to P&L. I hope, okay, this is a lease modification, which is not so very easy. In doing problems, you get more clarity. But because the rent concession, lease modification applies. Lease modification means recalculate the liability and recalculate the liability at the new discounting rate, and the differential amount between current liability and the new liability should be adjusted in ROU asset and lease liability. That's what we had. Now, this amendment, Ind AS 116 amendment, this is a optional amendment. A lessee is given an option. This amendment has no impact on lessor. This has only impact on lessee, person who has taken the asset on lease, predominantly who got the rent concession. The uh, the concession is this: if because of the lockdown, because of the COVID impact, there was a rent concession, then you need not treat like a lease modification. What do you mean by you need not treat like lease modification? You need not calculate the liability at the revised discounting rate, and difference you need not adjust in the ROU asset or lease liability. And they have put some conditions, and this is not compulsory, it's an option. Let me give you those points what are relevant, and you may note it down for your reference. Okay, let's write down this sentence. Give the heading. Give the heading. Ind AS 116 amendment. This itself is a new standard. Now we are having amendment on this. I will be sharing this video in the YouTube also. So those people who are my previous batches, who did not attend, who did not have this amendment, but they were writing in the May 21 or subsequently, you should be aware of this. So I'll share this video on YouTube also for your reference. So that's why I don't have any material specifically. Whatever required, we'll write it down. Whatever chart required, we'll write it down. So you can give heading Ind AS 116 amendment. Came couple of months back, applicable for the subsequent exam and onwards. You also write down as a practical expedient means what? This is optional. Optional. A lessee may elect not to assess whether a rent concession that meets the condition in paragraph 46B is a lease modification. May elect not to assess. A lessee that makes this election account for any change in the lease payments resulting from the rent concession the same way it would account for change applying this standard if the change were not a lease modification. You can write down this sentence. You can write down this sentence. It's given the material. Oh, you have it, is it? I don't remember actually. Where I've given what I did not include. Okay, okay. It is there in the material. Very good. Very good. COVID-19 I have given in the this thing. List I've added. Okay, I think I forgot. Okay, very good. Fine. Okay. For those who don't have material, you can quickly write down. In the material I have given, July 20 amendment. Yes, I think I've included the Bare Act, whatever is there, I've included as it is. Yeah. And now we are going to write in simple terms. The Bare Act portion, it's available in the Google also. You can read it. I've given the material also. You can read it. I'll just wait for 1 more minute. Those who want to write down, you can write down. Okay. 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 Now, what does this standard say is this applicability of this amendment. Okay, let's write a brief chart. Applicability of this amendment applies only for lessee. That is the first point. Okay, let me just say the July amendment, Ind AS 116 amendment. First point applies applicability. First point for lessees only. Second, it's optional. And some conditions need to be satisfied. conditions need to be satisfied. What are those conditions? Let me tell you those conditions. The change in lease payments is due to COVID-19. Due to COVID. That should be the effect. That should be the cause. The change in lease payment is the effect, and why there is a lease payment change is the COVID impact, lockdown situations. That is first. And then, or they don't really treat this as first point, but that's the heading given. Under that, we will have change, or we will have three main categories, three main points we have. Three main points we have. Revised lease payment should be lesser or substantially same. Lesser or substantially the same. That's the word they use. Substantially same as earlier. Revised lease payment is lesser or substantially the same as earlier. Okay, is lesser than, lower than, or substantially the same. So basically it means the revised lease payment should be less than or equal to original. That's what it means. The revised payment should be lesser than or equal to original. Should be less than or equal to original. That's the first point. Second point, it should affect the payments. It should affect the payments on or before 30th of June 21. It should be before 30th of June 21. And main other point, there are no changes in other terms. No substantive changes, in major changes. No substantive changes in other terms. No substantive changes in other terms. Then let me give you the treatment briefly. Then I'll give you the condition. Let's discuss the condition in detail, and let's discuss the numerical examples also for your reference. Okay. So what's the treatment? Treatment is lease modification don't apply, exempted. Lease modification accounting. Lease modification accounting exempted. Again, keep it in mind, this is optional. Huh? If they want, they can definitely go and do lease modification accounting. We'll learn that also. But it is a choice given to them for them not to apply lease modification account. What do you mean by this? The standard says like this. You are having a lease payment concession. The landlord says March lockdown. So the landlord says, okay, March, April, May, 3 months, I will give off the rent. I will give up. You don't pay 3 months rent. So when 3 months rent is not there, what will happen to lease liability? Don't you think lease liability should change? Why should it change, sir? Because it ultimately represents the present value of future cash flows. If future cash flows change, definitely my present value will change. So there has to be a recalculation. But lease modification means I should recalculate at the new rate. That's not required, exempted, and you need not adjust ROU asset and uh, the lease liability, but recalculation must be done. What is the accounting treatment? Lease modification. What is the treatment? Lease accounting modification exempted. Then what does it apply? Reassess. Reassess. Lease liability. Reassess lease liability. And the difference you transfer it to P&L. Difference between existing lease liability and the revised lease liability should be transferred to P&L and not on original, not on revised rate, using original discounting rate. Using original discounting. This is the broad application. One more small point is there. Effective date. Effective date. That one point I'll discuss at the last. Effective date, they say it is from for everything which is prepared on or after 1st of April 2020. Treatment effective date 1st April 2020. This is the broad discussion. Now we'll go to specification. Hope you have taken down this chart, broad chart. Now we'll discuss one by one on a scenario basis, and numerical also will apply for the treatment of it, for accounting treatment. Hope you have taken down till here. Okay. The first point. What is this? Revised lease payment should be substantially same or same as earlier. Remember, all the three conditions should be satisfied. Huh? Even if one condition is not satisfied, this don't apply. Meaning lease modification only applies. Okay. All conditions to be satisfied. If you want, you can write somewhere. All conditions to be satisfied. All conditions to be satisfied. Okay, let me tell you one by one. What is revised lease payment should be substantially same as earlier or lesser. We are talking about because of COVID, there was lockdown throughout the world for which the business was affected. They requested and the landlord gave concession. So we are talking about the concession. What type of concession? A landlord say, okay, don't pay me for 3 months. Or whatever the 3 months payments you're supposed to make, I will give you more time, pay me after 6 months. Postponement or a complete condonation. We are talking about those situations, right? But why they are telling us, if it is increases, certain companies can increase also. See, during the lockdown, some companies make very good profits. One of my friend was telling, he was working, he was in the industry of preparation of these mask and all. Just before this corona hit, they purchased it at, let's say, like $10, and they sold it as high as $1,000. I mean, just give an example, exact number I don't know, but something like that. So pharma companies made a bumper this period. So in those cases, the landlord taking this opportunity might increase the rates. He might tell, anyway, our rental agreement was supposed to be revised. I'm increasing the rates for you. Anyway, you have sufficient payment. You are in good position. Might happen. So those things are not covered here. So it should be lesser or substantially same. Okay. Let me tell you what do you mean by lesser and what do you mean by substantially same. Let me tell you that example. Okay. Let's understand these cases. Example. What do you mean by this? Okay. So, okay. Let's say discussion held on. That is discussion held on uh, 15th of April, let's say 15th of April 2020, that what was supposed to be the lease payments, lease payments, original lease payments were like this. Let's say payable quarterly on 30th June 2020, 30th September 2020, and 31st December 2020, 31st March 21. Lease payment was supposed to be like this: 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Typically, lease payment will happen on monthly basis, but monthly means too many calculations, so I'm revising it to quarterly. It can be monthly also, it can be yearly also. For example purpose, I'm taking the quarterly for easy communication for simple numbers. This original lease payment. Revised lease payment happened to be like this. Let's say this is case 1. Okay, case 1. Revised lease payments, so they say don't give me 1 lakh for the next quarter. For 30th September also exempted. And 31st December, give me same thing, 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Now here what is happening? This is a pure concession, right? So this is lesser than original. This is lesser than original. That is what the first point is talking about. Okay, let me tell you case 2. What is a revised lease payment? Revised lease payment look like this. 1 lakh, 1 lakh was, 1 lakh, 1 lakh was supposed to be there. You don't pay me, but you pay me 2 lakh in the December quarter and pay me 2 lakh in the March quarter. So earlier what you're paying 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 4 lakh full year. Now what you're paying 2 lakh, 2 lakh, which is substantially same. Is same amount, but there is a postponement. So there will be change in lease liability because payment was supposed to be happening 30th of June, 30th of September, but it's happening 31st December, 31st of March. So payment wise, you may say there is no change, but time value of money is there. Because lease liability would have calculated taking the June and September payment into consideration. Now if we postpone to December, lease liability should change because present value will change. But lease payments, these are substantially same. Substantially same. Now let me take case 3. Revised lease payment is happened to be, let's say 1 lakh, 1 lakh was there. He says don't pay me this. But in 31st of December, you have to compensate for me and pay me 1,50,000. And on 31st of March, you pay me 3,50,000. Now here you tell me, will this concession apply? This practical expedient apply it or not? What do you think? Now how much you are originally paying? 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 4 lakh. Now you are paying 1,50,000, 3,50,000. So you are paying more. You're paying more means this exemption, this practical expedient don't apply. This exemption don't apply. This exemption don't apply. Okay, so this is regarding the first point. Hope you're clear with respect to the first point. The first point. Now it affects the payments lesser than or below before 30th of June 2021. In my examples, all of these are before 30th of June 2021 only. I'll take case 4, then I'll come to the second situation. I hope you have taken down till here. Okay. Now case 4, I'm going further. Dates are same. I'll take little bit extended dates now. 30th of June 20, 31st of 30th of June. Okay, September next quarter. 30th of September 2020, then December 2020, March 2020, June, next June, March 21, June 21, and 30th of September 21. Now, case 4. First of all, if I apply on case 1, is it satisfying second definition? That is all the payments made before 30th of June 2021? Payments made before 30th of June 2021? Definitely yes, right? Definitely yes. So this, all these things, all three cases, payments are before 30th of June 2021. So second condition is satisfied in these three cases. Now let me come to one more case now. Case 4. Original 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Quarterly payment of 1 lakh. Revised lease payments, he says, don't pay me anything up to 30th of June 2021. Pay me together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 6, 6 lakhs. You pay me at one shot after 30th of September 2021. Now tell me, do you think the second condition is satisfied here or not? What is your opinion? Is it affecting the payments beyond the 30th of June 2021? Is the concession deferral beyond the 30th of June 2021? What do you think? It is satisfied. It is not that not satisfied. It is satisfied. So what does the standard says? The concession should fall within this period. Concession should fall. It should say it should affect the payments before June. The postponement payment may be later. Adjusted payment may be later. The concession should fall in this period. Are you understanding this? The concession should fall in this period. That is what this says. So all these concession, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 5 lakh concession is within this period. Sir, payment made in September, payment let it happen whenever it is. But concession should be within this period. I hope you got the point. Now, one more. Case 5, let me tell you. Maybe you get it better here. Case 5. Original 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, and 1 lakh. Okay. And the revised payment is revised payment. This is nothing. No payment till September. Finally, 7 lakh payment on 31st of March, 31st of December 21. Final payment is done on 7 lakh on 31st of December 2021. Now you see this period, right? This 1 lakh period is beyond 30th of June. Is beyond 30th of June 21. Therefore, the second condition not satisfied. Second condition not satisfied. I hope you are clear on this aspect regarding the second condition. The lease payment should fall before 30th of June 2021. The concession applicability, the actual payment, the compensation, the set off payment can take place beyond 30th of June 2021. Now, can we get up to 30th of June? No. There is no partial exemption here. You can't say up to 30th of June I'll take the last payment I'll take later. No partial exemption. Either you have an exemption or you don't have an exemption. No partial applicable. Hope you are clear on this one. Second condition. Shall I go to third condition now? Okay. Third condition is very simple. Third condition is no substantive changes in other terms. What do you mean by other terms? Now the lessee should not say like this. Now I am in first floor, which is occupying 1,000 square feet area. Now because of this rent, give me some rent concession. He said, landlord, okay, take rent concession. I'll give you concession, but once you come back, don't take the first floor. Shifted everything to second floor, which is only 500 square feet, and I have other 500 square feet. I'll give it to others. So other terms should not change. In the sense, either in the area occupied or in the term of the lease, the person should not say, okay, it is supposed to be lease period of 5 years, now let's make it 10 years. Only change should be with respect to lease payments. Other terms such as the scope, other terms such as term of the lease, such as other payment conditions should not be changed. Other terms like scope, area occupied, or the overall lease term, etc. Other terms of the lease should not change. Other conditions of the lease should not change. I hope you got this point. No substantive changes in other terms. For legal purpose, small changes would be there. That is accepted. Okay. Now coming to the accounting treatment, is modification exempted, and you have to reassess the lease liability, and difference should be transferred to P&L account. Let's take a simple example to make you understand this. Some not a lot of numericals will be there, so please bear with me. We have to write down those aspects. Okay. So come to this one. Example, you take it down. Date of inception of the lease. Date of inception. Let's say 1/4/2019. 1/4/2019. And pay lease payments quarterly, let's say 1 lakh for 2 years. Quarterly for 2 years. Okay. Due to corona effect, this lease concession given, on 1st of April 2020, that is next year, that is March only lockdown and all happened. So April they discussed, or 2nd of April, whatever it is, let's say 2nd of April, just 1 day difference, they discussed that only 1 year remaining, right? Because out of 2 year, 1 year is over, only 1 year is remaining. So they said 1 lakh, instead of 1 lakh every quarter, you make 2 lakh the last 2 quarters. This is the change. Inception of the contract 1/4/2019. Lease payments quarterly 1 lakh for 2 years. And last 2 quarters, they said, don't pay me in the April, don't pay me in June. Last 2 quarter is there, make it as 1 lakh. Okay. So for our reference, let us write down the original and revised one. What and all happens? Okay. First, let's calculate. On 31st of March 2020, there is no change. So let's calculate. On 31st of March 2020, how do you calculate? But before that, inception, let's calculate. On 1/4/2019. On 1/4/2019, what you should recognize? You should recognize lease liability, and which is equal to ROU asset. How do you calculate lease liability? 1 lakh payable quarterly for 2 years. Let's say discounting rate is 12%. Easy purpose, discounting rate 12, original discounting rate. On 1/4/2019, the discounting rate, applicable discounting rate, 12%. And on 2/4/2020, let's say discounting rate is 10%. 10%. Okay. Now 1/4/2019, you have to calculate the inception. So we are calculating actually full-fledged problem here. On 1/4/2019, at the inception, lessee should recognize an amount equal to lease liability and ROU asset. How do you calculate present value of your cash flows? 8 quarters you have to make a payment. Everything is discounted. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, fifth quarter, sixth quarter, seventh quarter, eighth quarter. All 8 quarters should be discounted. Okay. With the amendment, I'm also trying to teach you a little bit more about this standard. I hope you get those concepts also on lease. So let me write the full payment structure. 8 quarters also I'll write it down. Original. What are the payments? Starting from 30th of June 19. 8 payments you should write. 8 column, okay? 30th of June 19. 30th of September 19. 31st of December 19. 31st of March 20. 4 more required. Okay, I need more space. Please manage your space accordingly. 8 columns I need. 30th of June 19. 30th of September 19. 31st of December 19. 31st of March 20. 1 year lease over. Second lease. 30th of September 20. 30th of June 20. 30th of September 20. 31st December 20. 31st March 21. First condition satisfied. And payments are 1 lakh every quarter. 1 lakh every quarter. One lakh every quarter. Now, original, how do you calculate? You need to do discounting. 30th of June, discounting to today value. All these should be discounted. We will take some little bit of time here, but I want you to get the absolute clarity because this is very much possible in exam questions. So I'm taking time. And also for those people who are watching my previous classes and now amendment, some previous classes memory also you need to recollect. So we are doing that. Present value. At what rate? At that point in time, 12%. So 12% is for per annum. I am doing quarterly. So 12% divided by 4 means we get 3%. 3% discounting rate we should do. Okay. That simply means how do you calculate? 1 lakh multiplied by the annuity factor at 3% for 8 years. That is 1 lakh multiplied by 3% for 8 years, 1 by 1.03, 8 years. Let me take a little bit more decimals so you'll get more clear answer. So 3% for 8 quarters. $7.01 969, right? 7.01 969. 7.01 969. If I multiply it by 1 lakh, 7 lakh 1,969. 7 lakh 1,969. So initially we recognize lease liability of 7 lakh 1,969 and ROU asset of 7 lakh 1,969. On 7 lakh 1,969, we follow amortized cost methods of liability and we are going to charge interest. And on ROU asset, it is treated as a PPE asset, plant property equipment as per Ind AS 16, and we are going to charge depreciation. So this is your revision of existing thing. Okay, now this is over. Now on 31st of March 2020, what would have happened to lease liability and what would have happened to ROU asset? ROU asset very simple. This is anyway depreciated over a period of 2 years. Divide by 2, you get the answer. But what about this number? Lease liability. How do we calculate lease liability at the end of the year? You can calculate in two ways. I'll show you both the ways. Typically, we follow tabulation method like annuity factor method. But let's understand conceptually also. But I hope you have taken down till here. Okay. On 31st of March, that is before changes, on 31st of March, at the year end, on 31st of March 2020, carrying amount of lease liability and the carrying amount of ROU asset. Carrying amount of ROU asset. ROU asset easier one. Let's take it first one. 701,969 divided by 2. Depreciation. Three lakh 50,985. So if I subtract it, that is 7 lakh 1,969 minus 3 lakh 50,985 depreciation. This is the depreciation amount. The revised carrying amount comes to same number actually because divided by 2, 3,50,984, just the round of purpose. Okay, now comes to lease liability. Lease liability, one method to do amortized cost method. Amortized cost method. What is amortized cost? Opening balance. Then you charge interest, quarterly interest at the rate of 3%. Then the payment which will take place, lease payment. Then the closing balance. Closing balance. So on opening balance, first quarter, quarter 1, it was we are doing for the financial year 31st March 2020. Opening balance 7 lakh 1,969. So interest at 3% if I do 21,059. Lease payment 1 lakh. The closing balance is how much? 701969 plus 21,059 interest accrued, finance cost accrued, minus lease payment 1 lakh, closing balance 2328. This becomes the opening balance, amortization schedule 6,23,028. On that 3% you charge 18,691. Lease a payment of 1 lakh, and closing balance 5,41,719. If you want, you just write the dates also here. Dates of payments. This is on the first payments or quarters, you can say. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. 4 quarters in a year are there. So 5,41,719. On that you get 16,252. 1 lakh a payment. Closing balance 4,57,971. And this becomes the opening balance 4,57,971. On that interest 13,739. 1 lakh a payment. Closing balance 3,71,710. Okay, 3,71,710. Now this is what is the amount on 31st of March 2020. So lease liability is 3,71,710. Hope you got these numbers. Now tell me, don't you think this amount of liability is the obligation of remaining liability? Standing on 31st of March 2020, how many remaining liabilities are there? Going back to the original one, 30th of June we made the payment. 30th of June we made the payment. 30th of September we made the payment. 31st December we made the payment. 31st March we made the payment. So liability represents the obligation towards the remaining payments. So if I do present value of remaining 4 payments, then also I should get the same number. The examination, this is a faster method, so I'm telling you this. Even other lease modification problem, you can do this. In fact, we had done this in financial instruments also, this type of problems. But anyway, our students are very sincere followers of Gajini, so you forget fast. So I just have to repeat this. So this is nothing but this represents obligation to pay remaining payments, right? It represents payments or present value of remaining payments, remaining lease payment, remaining lease payments. What are remaining lease payments? This current year, 2020-21, in the sense you are having 30th of June 2020, 30th of September 2020, 31st of March 2000, 31st of December 2020, 31st of March 2021. Sir, should I take original rates or revised rate? Can you please tell me? Should I take a original 1 lakh or should I take a revised 2 lakh here? These payments. I'm calculating the carrying amount on 31st March 2020. Should I calculate, should I use original 1 lakh or revised 2 lakh? What do you think? It is original only, my dear friends, because we are not done the modification yet. We are calculating the carrying amount, original amount only we are calculating. Just because you're doing present value, don't go for new numbers, okay? This is the book value calculation, existing value calculation, alternative to amortization cost. So existing only, which is 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, remaining lease payments, original lease payments, 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Discount it on which date? 31st of March 2020. Discount it by 1. This discounting, this you discount. Okay. All these 4 you discount it. At what rate? Discounting at 3%. That 12% per annum means 3% per quarter. 3%. 4 payments are there. Simply you can take 4 annuity factor, in the sense 1 lakh multiplied by annuity factor at 3% for 4 quarters. Don't break your heads, sir. 5, 6, 7, 8. No, no. Remaining is 4 quarters. Remaining 4 payments. Simply remaining 4 annuity factor. I mean, a discounting factor sum. How much you get? I think 3.7170, right? So 1 lakh into 3.7170, which is nothing but 3,71,710, which is the same as this, which we calculated using amortization cost method. So in the exam, using the annuity factor method is faster. Please use that. Okay, so far what we discussed is original lease accounting for lessee. We are yet to come to modification, and will come to the choice, this practical expedient, what the lessee has. There's also one more interesting question. Can this be accounted 31st March itself, the modification? I'll discuss it later. I hope you got these points till here, and hope you have taken down till here. Okay. Now we'll come to the modification on, what was the date? 2nd of April. 2020, there is a rent concession or rent deferral, lease payment deferral modification. Now let's understand. If you apply Ind AS 116 amendment, practical expedient, what would be the accounting treatment? If you don't apply, what would be the accounting treatment? Let's understand both the ways. Okay, so what is the revised payment now? Revised lease payments on 30th of June 20, 30th of September 20, 30th of 31st of December 20, and 31st of March 21. It was supposed to be 1 lakh, 1 lakh, but not 1 lakh now. On 31st December, it's going to be 2 lakh. And on 31st of March, also going to be 2 lakh. For the last two quarters, they say, pay me the balance amount. Now, this should be discounted. At what rates? This is, first let's apply this exemption. Apply this practical expedient given. Practical expedient. Applying exemption. Applying practical expedient. Applying this exemption. Discount at what rate? When you apply this practical expedient, they say don't worry about the changes in the rates. Take the original rates only. Don't take revised 10%. Take original 12%. Means for the quarter it becomes 3%. So discount it at 3%. discount it at 3%. So present value today, you should actually take it till till 2nd of April. Now, 2 days you ignore, 2 days and all, you don't worry about it. You need to do a discounting at 3%. So let's calculate by a discounting factor. What are discounting factor you apply? Let me calculate individually. This is 2 lakh. Discounting factor at the rate of 3% for third quarter. And here 2 lakh, or let me do the discounting factor separately. Discounting factor at the 3% for third quarter, discounting factor 3% for fourth quarter. 0.91514, I think this one. 0.91514. And 0.88849. You can multiply with 2 lakh, 2 lakh, or you can simply directly multiply, add these two numbers and do it. Both are fine. So this present value, revised liability, revised lease liability, 2 lakh multiplied by, not annuity factor, sum of these two factors, 0.91514 plus 0.88849. Is it 3,67,26 approximately? 3,60,726. Yeah. Don't simply take two discounting factor. It's not first two, it's last two. Deferral happened. So don't take the first two discounting factor. Discounting of third quarter and fourth quarter. In the sense, 1 by 1.03 equals and equals to once more. 3 times when you press equal to, you get this number. Once more equals to, you get this number. Okay. Okay. What is the original lease liability? Original lease liability was 3 lakh 71,710, right? 3 lakh 71,710. 3 lakh 71,710. So difference transfer to P and L. Difference transfer to P and L. 3 lakh 71,710 minus this 3 lakh 60,726. 10,984. This is gain or loss. Liability 3 lakh 71 became liability 3 lakh 60. Liability reduced. It's going to be a gain recognized in P and L account. Gain recognized in P and L account. Okay. This is when you apply the practical expedient. Practical expedient. If you don't apply practical expedient, that also will tell you what to be done. Okay. And what will happen to the ROU asset? This ROU was okay. What will happen to the in the year 2021? What do you do? In the year 2020-21, if you want, you can prepare one amortization schedule. Opening balance, interest cost, interest, Then you will have lease payments, closing balance. Quickly prepare. First quarter, second quarter, anyway, nothing is there. But still, interest will accrue, mind it. Opening balance. Basically, are you able to understand? This is the time value you are getting. Because you are making a same payment instead of 4 quarters, you are making a payment in 2 quarters. So it is a time value of money you are accounting. I don't know whether you're able to get that. This is the time value of those 1 lakh, 1 lakh postponed. Anyway, so okay. So you start with opening balance 3,60,726. Interest you still recognize. Don't tell lease payment not there, interest not there. Interest still recognize 10,822. I don't know whether you're able to see the numbers. Please write along with me in the same speed. Lease payment nothing. Closing balance 3,71,548. 548. Now this becomes opening 3,71,548. 3,71,548. 3,71,548. I'm reading also, so in case you're not able to read, you can listen to me and write it down. Interest at 3%, 11,146. Lease payments nothing. 3,82,694. This becomes opening for third quarter 3,82,694. On this interest 3% 11,481. Lease payments nothing 2 lakh. Oh, lease payment 2 lakh here. 1,94,175. And this becomes opening 1,94,175. 1,94,175. Interest 3% 5,825. I think no round off also required here. 2 lakh lease payments. Closing liability becomes 0. Okay. So this is the interest expense will be taken to P&L. Depreciation ROU assets. What was the balance we had? 3,50,984. Full amount goes to depreciation. So on 1/4/2020, opening balance was there. 3,50,984. You provide depreciation minus depreciation. Full amount 3,59,884. It becomes 0. It becomes 0. This is when the practical expedient, not a practical expedient applied. So differential amount gain recognized in P&L and discounting rate is original discounting rate. Discounting rate is original discounting rate. So just because you say practical expedient does not mean nothing to be done. These calculations still need to be done. What is the convenience by applying this? Discounting rate, I use the old one. I need not go for new one. And I need not adjust ROU asset. The liability change, concession I've got transfer to P&L. Gain transfer to P&L. If it is loss, loss should not come. Because we are accounting only for decrease in lease payment or same lease payment. Increase in lease payments, we are not accounting. This point itself don't come. So it has to be a gain to be recognized in P&L when you take this practical expedient. Okay. So let me go for the second one now. On 2nd of April 2020, if you don't apply this practical expedient, then what would be the treatment? Hope you have taken till here. Okay. On 2nd of April 2020, rent deferral, if practical expedient not taken, practical expedient not applied. Practical expedient not applied means what is applied? Lease modification applied. Lease modification applied. What is lease modification? Let's do it now. Revised lease payments, 30th of June 2020, 30th of September 2020, no payments, 31st of December 2020, 2 lakh, 31st of March 2020, 21, sorry, 2 lakh. So nothing, nothing, 2 lakh, 2 lakh. This should be discounted to the 1st of April. At what rate? Not 10%, not 12%, revised discounting rate. Revised discounting rate is 10%. Revised rate is 10% divided by 4, so it becomes 2.5%. So discount it at 2.5%, discount it at 2.5%. So discounting factor 2.5% for third quarter, discounting factor 2.5% for fourth quarter. Point 92860, 0.90595. So revised lease liability, 1 lakh multiplied, no, 2 lakh, not 1 lakh, 2 lakh multiplied by these discounting factors. You can sum it up. 0.92860 plus 0.90595. How much it comes to? 3,66,910, is it? 3,66,910. Revised lease liability, 3,66,910. Okay, now 3,66,910 is fine. And how do we account? I mean, original lease liability. We calculated 3,71,710. 3,71,710. Now here also decrease in lease liability is there. But this decrease, as per lease modification accounting, you don't take it to P&L account. You will adjust in the ROU asset. So why, sir? Logically, no. Because what is ROU asset? ROU asset is representing lease payments. So when lease payments changes, you reflect in ROU asset. That's what logic behind this. So differential to be adjusted. Differential adjusted in both lease liability and ROU asset. Calculate 3,71,710 minus 3,66,910. How much it comes to? 4,800. 4,800. It's a decrease, right? It's coming down. So we subtract in both the cases. So you will have a lease liability and ROU asset. What was there on 31st of March 2020 was 3,71,710, and ROU asset was 3,59,84. Now we are having a modification. So on 2nd of April 2020, we do a modification minus this 4,800 and minus 4,800. The revised one becomes the new liability. So revised one, modified one, 3,66,910 and 3,59,84 minus 4,800. 3,46,184. So this will go to P&L depreciation because only 1 year remaining. This will be depreciated in 2020-21. Depreciation for the year will be 3,46,184 because full amount, only 1 year is pending. And 3,66,910 will be applied on amortized cost methods. Let's quickly prepare that also for our reference because we have done so far. Let's do that also on the revised amount 2.5%. 3,66,910. Okay, is it done? Shall I go for one more amortization cost? Okay, let's go for amortization cost of this one. Revise now. Amortization for amortization schedule for 2021. Opening interest cost charged, lease payments, closing. Opening the revised liability 3,66,910. Interest will be at the revised rate, a new rate 2.5%. On 3,66,910, 2.5%. 9,173. Lease payment nothing. 3,76,083. Then this becomes opening. On this 2.5%, 9,402. No lease payments. Lease payments nothing. 3,85,485. This becomes opening for next quarter. 9,637. And lease payments of 2 lakh is made. So 3,85,485 plus 9,637 minus 2 lakh. 1,95,122. This becomes the opening. On this you apply 2.5%. 4,878. Payment is 2 lakh. And this becomes 0. The interest amount will be transferred to P&L account. Okay, so hope you understood. When you apply the practical expedient, how the accounting will take place. The difference is taken to P&L as a gain. When you don't apply the practical expedient, and then you need to adjust the ROU asset and lease liability. And on lease liability, amortization will continue. On the ROU asset, depreciation will continue. Okay, hope you got this point. in material says lease modification during decrease difference is charged to P&L. Not all the decrease, uh, modification decrease is not charged to P&L. It is only in two cases: a lease term change or the scope change. Then the revised ROU asset is revised, lease liability is revised. That difference you transfer it to P&L. That only in those two cases. Specifically, I told you in the previous session. Scope decrease, lease term decrease. In those two cases, lease ROU asset is reduced and uh, lease liability also reduced. That difference you take it to P&L. Only in those two decrease cases, not in all the cases. That's why I told. In all other cases, it is treated like modification. I'll just quickly go for the chart just to clarify that point. Okay, so you see decrease in scope or term, remeasure the lease liability at revised rate and decreased ROU asset proportionately, and this one, then difference you take it to P&L. Only in a decrease in scope and the term. Maybe in my chart also you have to update it. This one, I think I told you yesterday, but anyway. Change in lease term, remeasure liability and adjust ROU asset, difference you take it to P&L. Decrease in lease term and decrease in scope also same thing. Decrease in scope and decrease in lease term. Then remeasure the ROU asset and remeasure the lease liability and difference you take it to P&L. So only for decrease it applies. Decrease in scope, decrease in lease term and not in lease payment decrease. I want to clarify that. Okay, anyway, hope that point is clear. Okay, two more small aspects relevant for this one, for this standard. It says the effective date discussion. Let me just quickly tell you. Effective date of this thing, what was telling? I was telling this, hope remember. Effective date is 1/4/2020. Correct? So it is for the year 2020-21. But the accounts for the year 1920 might be not yet approved. Now, can we consider this as event occurring after balance sheet date and account these changes what we discussed on 31st of March itself? Are you understanding? This change took place on 2nd of April 2020. But board of directors are yet to finalize for 1920. Can these be taken in the year 1920 itself? The standard says yes, you can take it. The effective date is 1/4/2020. Means financial year 2020-21 onwards. Normally. But standards give specific thing. If accounts for the year 2019-20 were still pending, if they were pending, then the modification can be accounted. The modification impact can be considered in 2019-20 itself, which is nothing but you're treating like an adjusting event. You're treating this like a adjusting event. Adjusting event. Okay. One more question, simple one. This lease rental, the concession may be decided subsequently. In the sense, for the March concession is given. Then April lockdown happened. So for April concession given at the end of April. Then May lockdown happened. So in the month of May, concession happened. So if the concession was received on respective date, can I account it on the hindsight? Are you understanding? April, lockdown happened. At the end of April, concession given. May, lockdown happened. May, concession given. May 2020. Now, when you prepare the financial statements at the end of 2020-21, you know these concessions were obtained. Can I consider these statement in the hindsight? Because on preparation of financial statements on 31st March 2021, I knew these concessions were received. So when to account those concessions? At the beginning or as and when the concession were received? Not at the beginning. As and when the concession were received. You can simply write that one point. If concession was obtained on different dates, then this exemption or this modification amendment applied on respective dates. Then the treatment given on respective dates. Given on respective dates. Given on respective dates. That is no hindsight accounting. No hindsight accounting. What is hindsight accounting? On that day, I don't know. On 1st of April 2020, I don't know. But on 31st of March 2021, when I'm preparing fund statements, I know it. By looking backwards, I know. No, that is not accepted. In the month of April end, you got concession. April end, you do this accounting. June end, you got one more concession. June end, again, you redo this accounting. And respectively take the gain to P&L in those periods. Okay. Now, and if you use this practical expedient in the notes to accounts in the presentation, you should disclose this effect. So for that purpose, let's quickly look at the what and all we should show in the balance sheet presentation purpose. What and all will be showing, and overall, not just this one actually, overall from the lessee point of view, what and all is going to be reflected. ROE assets in the asset side, lease liability on the liability side. You should also divide this into current portion and non-current portion. How current, non-current? Lease liability payable within 12 months becomes a current portion, beyond 12 months becomes a non-current portion. In the example we just did, lease term is going to end in 31st March 2021. So on 31st March 2020, only 1 year pending. So only for 1 year, it means it is a current liability. It should be shown in current, not in non-current. But what if lease is there for few more months? Up to 31st of March 2021 should be current, remaining should become non-current. How exactly to calculate those things? We will do when we do problems, I'll tell you those things. As of now, this is fine. ROU assets, you can show separately from other assets. In the sense, you can show leased assets. Under that, you tell machinery leased, building leased, furniture leased. Like that, you can show separately from other assets or together with other assets with a disclosure. So when I show in the machinery, it includes owned machinery as well as there is ROU asset machinery. In building, own building as well as ROU asset building. Premise taken on rental basis. But in disclosure notes to accounts, should give the breakup. So with proper disclosure, you can club with the other assets also. If you have investment property, you can show. What is investment property? We discuss in Ind AS 41. Is 40. Lease liability separately from others, or you can mix it with others with proper disclosure, just like the assets. In P&L account, on ROU asset depreciation will come. On lease liability, interest will come under amortized cost method. You should show present separately. And remeasurement of lease liability sometime may come, and the difference may be taken to P&L account. Decrease in scope, decrease in lease term, that you should disclose it. In the cash flows, principal portion of lease liability is financing activity. Interest portion of lease liability is also financing activity. Of course, you need to show it separately. The payment will become financing activity. Short-term leases and low-value leases will be under operating activities. They will not be taken as the financing, right? Because logically you understand. When you take the asset on lease, I am recognizing a liability and recognizing an asset. Now, on a lease liability, I'm recognizing as a liability. So when I pay lease payment, it is towards a repayment. It is towards repayment. So it's a financing activity. But for short-term lease and low-value items, I'm not recognizing liability at present value. So whatever make the payment will be an expense, normal expense, rental expense. So you can show as operating activities. But lease payment, principal portion as well as interest portion, total lease payment is like a repayment of loan. So that will come in financing activity. Variable lease payments also will come in operating activities because variable lease payments we would not have included as a part of lease liability. Because in lease liability, we take only fixed payment or in substance fixed payment. Variable lease payments are not part of lease liability. So when you make a lease payment to variable lease payment, lease liability not adjusted, it's not a financing activity. It will be shown as a operating activity. Okay. So this is the treatment in the books of SC, accounting and the theoretical aspects, including the modification, the amendment of whatever happened in 2020 due to COVID. Also, we have discussed, definitely can come in exam. I hope you are clear till here.